To take a moment and welcome you to the first Mental Health Matters event of this school year. I say it's the first, yes! We certainly hope it's not the last. And, as I say the title of that event, what comes to my mind and seeing you here and our amazing resources that are out front is that mental health does matter. Those are not just words. Mental health matters. It matters in our school, it matters in our community, and it matters to you. So thank you. I know you have so many other things going on a Tuesday night with your families and your kids. And so I just want to thank you so much for being here. And I guess I could start by introducing myself. My name is Stephanie Allen, and I have been the privilege of being with Madison City Schools for the last 8 years. I was a school counselor, and currently I am the mental health services coordinator. So tonight was definitely not something that was just planned by one person. So I really want to thank all the parents from the Madison City PTA that helped us plan, our district social workers, Dr. West, our coordinator of safety and security, and Lee Shaw, coordinator of development too. It was a joint effort. Thank you so much for doing that. I have seen several special guests that I just want to acknowledge. Thank you so much. Dr. Donaldson for being here tonight, and several board members, Mr. Ferreira and Ms. Lessman. Thank you for joining us as well. And I do want to give just a few minutes. Our superintendent, Dr. Nichols, is here, so I'd love for him to come out and greet you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'll be very brief. I do appreciate Mr. Ferrer and Ms. Lessman for being here, members of our central office staff, Dr. Clayton here at James Clemens. We could not have done this without Stephanie, and we could not have Stephanie doing what she is doing as a liaison without the grant from the Alabama Department of Education. And so the Alabama Department of Education provided this grant. Dr. West, who coordinates our safety for the school district. Where is Dr. West? Is he hiding out? There he is, back there in the corner. Came to me and wanted to make sure that we reached out to get this opportunity from the State Department to have someone in our school district to connect all the dots. We have great folks. Brianna Hawkins and Heather are here, Hicks, and they have done so much to reach out and work with our students. We have great counselors at our schools. Many of them are here tonight. But having someone at the district level that can reach out to all the community partners that are out in the hall, and we're so thankful for them, and be able to coordinate all those services and help us to look at that differently is a game changer. And so I just want to thank Dr. West for doing that, and especially Stephanie, who had this opportunity in her mind to put this together. And isn't this a wonderful start tonight to many other events that we can have? Give Stephanie a hand. She is very helpful. And we couldn't do it without our PTA. Many of our PTAs have been here and out in the hall. If you're part of our PTA and have helped with this, raise your hand. We want to give you a hand. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Y'all are never shy, never shy. And if you don't belong to the PTA, shame on you, right? You should join. Is that right, PJ? Is that what you said to say? Shame on you. Okay. I've been around a long time. And I can remember the days when young people and adults were afraid to admit that their mental health was challenging them. I'm thankful today that we're breaking through that, and that we're realizing that health is in many different ways, and that we as a family in our school district have the opportunity to help each other in this mental health journey, knowing that you're not alone. I will say that after 60 years floating around this planet, all of us at some time struggle with our mental health. Whether you're a child who goes to school at Sam Houston Elementary School and has not had any sleep because you live in the home with an alcoholic parent, or you lose family members, or other things in your life, we all at some time have or will struggle with the challenges of our mental health. Used to, we wouldn't talk about it. But today we can, and we can ask for help, and we can seek those in our family to help and serve us. That's what tonight is about. Tonight is about letting our community know, our Madison City School family, that we're all here for each other. And that when we struggle in those areas, that there are people in our school district and in our community that are here to reach out and say, you are not alone. We are here with you. So I thank you for being here tonight. I thank you for being willing to come and to listen. If you're here tonight and you need someone to put their arm around you and say you're not alone, we are here for that. We're here to help you. And I just thank Stephanie so much for allowing us to remember that as we journey through this time together. So thank you and have a great evening. Thank you, Stephanie.
So well said. When we started planning this event, we were kept going back to that same vision, that same feeling that we wanted parents to feel like there are places, there are people that you can reach out to, that you are not alone. And just by being here tonight, I like to think that we are breaking the stigma around mental health. So I just want to take a minute before our wonderful speaker comes up and just talk to you about resources, because one of the things that we really wanted tonight was for you to leave with something tangible. So I want to say thank you so much to all of our community partners. There's listed out on the screen. We are so blessed in this area to have so many wonderful resources that a lot of areas do not have. And we have different people and places and organizations to help meet all kinds of needs, whether that's grief and loss, whether that is trauma, substance abuse, mental illness, and they have all given their time to be here tonight and provide hands-on resources. I saw some great ones. I hope when you came in the door, you picked up a blue bag so that you could build your own mental health wellness kit or toolbox. I saw some breathing exercises, some grounding exercises, stress catcher. Some of y'all might need to do that tonight when you get home. It'll take you back to your childhood and you can learn some coping skills as well that you can do with your kids, and just great information. So thank you so much to our community partners. I want to point out something that is also in your bag already. There's a very small, so don't let it get lost in there, magnet, and we have a picture of it as well. It looks, and it has a QR code on it. Looks just like this, and it is very small. It's a magnet that you can stick on your fridge for when you need it or wherever, but if you use your device to link to this QR code, you will find a digital toolbox full of mental health resources. I'm so excited. A big thank you to Daniel Witt, who helped make all of this come to life, to have resources where they're there for you, and they'll continue to be there for you. And there's some great websites, great articles, great things there, and steps on what to do if you think your child might need some mental health support. So please be sure to check that out as well, and those digital tools will be there for you in the future. Secondly, if you are a Madison City Schools counselor, can you please come on up here? I'm going to embarrass you for a minute. They are like, So you have handouts, you have digital tools, you have all of this, but nothing can beat the resource that you have in these amazing school counselors. So I wanted you to see their face, hear their names. I hope you've gotten the chance to meet your child's school counselor. Our Madison City Schools has at least one school counselor in every single school building. We also have mental health counselors as well that are available. But I just want to take a minute to introduce you. So I am just going to, y'all just give a little wave as I go through the list right here, and see if I don't leave you out, so you know who exactly is here. We have from James Clemens High School, Miss Rosalind Smith and Jenny Moorer. And we have LaTanya McGuire as well, and Kristen Gist. I see some Liberty Middle School reps right here, Shataya Lateef, Macy Smith, and Karen Clayton. We have a new Midtown counselor, Carissa Davis, and Jamie Ratcliffe. She is new to our team, and she shares between Midtown and Heritage Elementary School. We have Brewer Mitchell from Mill Creek and Ashley Claiborne from Mill Creek as well. We have Casey Gaines from Heritage Elementary School. We have, let's see who else is down there. Shania Thompson from Columbia Elementary School and Alicia Sullivan-Smith from Rainbow Elementary School. So y'all give them a big hand. If you don't know your school, your child's school counselor, they are an amazing resource and can point you in the right direction if you're not sure where to go. Your child has advocates in the building. Administrators, teachers, coaches who continue to invest in your kids. And we see your kids every day. These are the faces that get to work with them when they are having a really rough day or they're in a crisis and they need someone to talk to. So we're so thankful for who they are. All their contact information is on their school website. So if you would want to talk to them, send them an email, set up a time to meet with them or speak with them over the phone. They are just such a valuable resource, and we're thankful to have them. I can't believe they didn't run for the hills when I called them up here, but. And I also want to say that I want to introduce Miss PJ Batchelor. She is the president of the Madison City Schools PTA. So she has just a few words for you tonight, and I cannot say enough about the partnership between Madison City Schools and our PTA. Having parents involved, having parents help plan a night like this is just so valuable. Your voices are heard through your PTA. So thank you so much. And PJ, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. The Madison City Council of PTAs is honored to have the opportunity to collaborate with the Madison City Schools and local service providers to better educate parents and students about mental health awareness. You may know PTA's mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. The fact that you're taking the time to be here today means that you share at least some part of that mission and that you care a great deal about the well-being of our students and our schools. Mental health is an important part of everyone's overall well-being. Now more than ever, it's important to understand how mental health systems serving children and youth should work, what services are available, and what approaches to mental health are most effective for our school community. The COVID-19 pandemic has really put a spotlight on adult and children's mental health, but it can be difficult to know how to really prioritize mental health and to reduce the stigmas surrounding it. To support mental health for yourself, your children, your community, it's important to consider all aspects of a child's life, from their academics to their hobbies to their social and emotional skills. And by supporting the whole child, teachers and parents provide the support necessary for children to thrive. Supporting the whole child is a shared responsibility of families, schools, and the community. Together, we can ensure that every child is healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. This shared responsibility for our students is vitally important because research has shown that there is a positive and convincing relationship between family and community involvement and student success, regardless of race, ethnicity, class, or level of parent education. We hope you're able to walk away from this mental health fair tonight better equipped to deal with the challenges that students and families are facing. We'd like to especially thank our PTA members in the audience tonight, just like Dr. Nichols did, because it's your continued support that allows us to host events such as this. And so if you haven't already, we want to encourage you to please consider joining PTA. We certainly believe that we can make every child's potential a reality, and since you're here tonight, you must believe that too. Our mission is possible to achieve for every child with the one collective voice of PTA. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lee Shaw, and I have the pleasure tonight to introduce our keynote speaker. Chris Newlin is the Executive Director of the National Children's Advocacy Center, where he's responsible for providing leadership and management of the NCAC and participating in national and international training and leadership activities regarding the protection of children. Chris has more than 22 years of experience working at the Child Advocacy Center and has done international speaking and training. He received his master's in school psychology from the University of Central Arkansas. He's a licensed professional counselor, has completed coursework at the Harvard University Business School Executive Education Program. The most important thing I think y'all need to know is that Chris is a Madison City resident. He is a fellow Madison City School parent, has been, and he is a huge advocate for our kids and our community, and just a joy to listen to. Anytime I get the opportunity to speak with him or get advice from him or just be around him, I always take more than what I had before I met with him. So I think that whatever you need to take tonight, he'll give to you, and you can spread it amongst your peers and family and kids. So thank you, Chris, for coming, and y'all enjoy.
Hey, Lee. Thank you all very much. Can you hear me okay? I've got a lapel mic. I might move around a little bit, so just my nature. But first I want to thank Madison City Schools for inviting me to speak with you tonight, and also to all of my colleagues who are here at the Resource Fair for sharing information with all of you. We have a tapestry of mental health providers and service organizations in this community to hopefully provide the needs to address everything that's needed. Lee mentioned and read some really nice, it's nice, Lee, that you have the ability to demonstrate your reading skills, so thanks, good for that. I don't know about you, but having worked in mental health for most of my life, I try to have a sense of humor about the work that we do. I know it's oftentimes serious, but I can't help but try to always, look at myself and kind of the maybe some lighter sides of things. So I want to share some information to you. Now, I think it's pretty unrealistic that in 45 minutes I'm going to provide a comprehensive speech on everything there is to know about mental health, how to intervene, how to assess, how to address it, how to diagnose, how to treat, and how we make sure to integrate this. But what I want to do is hopefully kick this whole effort off, this initiative by Madison City Schools around mental health issues, so that you are able to have a good foundation for starting. So just about my background, I've been at the National Children's Advocacy Center for the last 16 years, I have worked in mental health settings my entire professional career. I thought I wanted to be a school psychologist. That's what I went to school for in training. And for me, I was doing my internship and was at a school system where we had 4 students during my internship who took their own lives. So suddenly, I was thrust into a role of addressing trauma and difficult things, not just for the kids and the families involved, but also the fellow students who experienced some of this, saw some of this, lost their classmates. And so I got a very quick introduction into working in trauma kind of filled environments. I found that that's where I really felt like I was being successful, so I pursued more work in that area, and where better than, in many ways, than child abuse to do that work. So at the NCAC, we coordinate the multidisciplinary response to child abuse, if you're not familiar with our organization, but I'm not here to do any kind of promo about that. I want to talk more to you as a fellow parent. I have 2 boys. Both of them have graduated from Madison City Schools. They are 2 very different. My oldest son is in his 30s. He's disabled and lives at home. And literally the reason we chose to move to Madison when we were moving to this area was because the 2004 Teacher of the Year in the state of Alabama was a special education teacher from Madison City Schools. So that was something that was a real tip of the scale for us. And my older son, Kyle, was a real interesting animal. For any of you who have been at Bob Jones for a while, you would remember him as the recycling guy because he did all the recycling there. But I was introduced at an early time. It's supposed to be, I've been working in mental health. I'm supposed to be, have all this stuff figured out. And Kyle was a huge challenge for us. When he was young, He was incredibly aggressive, and when he was in preschool, during 1 year alone, we had to buy 4 pairs of glasses. He just had a proclivity for going up and grabbing glasses off of kids and breaking them. And, you know, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing in this mental health thing, and here I've got this son who's doing these things. The reason I share that with you is just because someone works in the mental health field doesn't mean they have everything figured out. And we're all parents, and parenting is hard work. It's a struggle. Raising kids is hard, and during these times, it's incredibly difficult. For us to do that. My younger son did not have some of the same challenges as Kyle, but he presented his own. Anybody who has a teenager in here, you understand about what some of the challenges? Only recently, now that he's in his later 20s, did I find out that at one time, at his time at Bob Jones, he instituted a new rule that was called No Pencil Friday. And I didn't know about this, but he would not do anything that required him to pick up a pencil on certain Fridays. So, you know, how proud am I, right? Awesome. I'm so glad to know that. But it's just that adolescents are at a weird time. It's a strange time for individuals to be growing up. Many of you, if you think back to the time when you were a kid, being an adolescent especially is an extremely awkward time. It's difficult. There's so many changes that are happening in our body and our hormones and our brain. So I want to try to address a little bit of that and bring enough levity to this that this isn't a depressing night, that it's actually a night that we understand a little bit more, so it helps explain what we see and what we experience on a regular basis. So mental health, physical illness, mental illness. You know, we all have a degree of mental health, and I would say for everybody in this room, everybody in this state, there are days, much like Dr. Nichols said, where we wax and wane. You know, some days we're feeling really good, like I'm a good person, things are going well, and some days we think, oh my gosh, nothing's working out for me. Everything's going wrong, and it just affects us, and it affects our mood and how we interact with others. So we all go through some cycles of this, where we're having up days and down days, and that's part of the natural experience of life. Now, our body's the same way. Some days our bodies feel better than others. Some days we're just like, oh, Lee, I need a lazy day. I just want to sit on the couch and take it easy. Other days we're energetic and we're ready to go and do stuff. Some days our bodies are feeling good, some days not. So this is the natural flow. The brain is our most sophisticated organ in our body. It's the most sophisticated thing we have in us, and it's the most complex and misunderstood. So I want to try to bring some reality to what we know about that. And I want to share that mental illness is not something like you catch and you never get rid of. I think that actually mental illness is something that we address, and we have challenges and we can make improvements. And just because someone is diagnosed with something doesn't mean that their life is forever ruined, changed, not going to be fully lived. There's all kinds of mental health issues we may face, just like there's lots of people who overcome physical illnesses to live very successful and happy lives. It's just for some reason we've really embraced the idea that you get sick physically and it's one thing, but if you get sick mentally, it's another. The reality is it's all physical. It's all physical things that are happening in your body. For example, when individuals experience trauma, it is the natural reaction of the brain to try to protect every being of the body. That's why we make some of the decisions we do. There are physical interactions that are happening, chemical interactions that are happening in our brain that change the way we view the world. So I struggle with why we continue to have this difference of these two. And I want to hopefully this series will debunk some of that, where people will not continue to think about the difference between mental health and physical health, but it's all the health of the individual. We are whole people. We're not halves with one physical, one mental. It's all one person who's affected. And things, now how about this? You have physical health, and that impacts mental health, and vice versa. So these are dynamic activities that are happening that are important. Now, I'm sure all of you remember back if you went to college or maybe took psychology in high school, there's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, this nice little paperweight, only 896 pages of light reading for you. But what is this book? This book is published by the American Psychiatric Association, And it is a listing of all the psychiatric disorders that are currently valid diagnoses that one may have. So just look at that. 896 pages of stuff. And it ranges everywhere from depressive disorders to anxiety disorders to neurodevelopmental disorders to paraphilic disorders, feeding and eating disorders, sleep disorders, substance abuse-related disorders, all over the map. Personality disorders, adjustment disorders, all these things that individuals may be diagnosed with. And I share that with you just so you kind of have some, walk away with some knowledge about it's not just some random thing. These are well-defined. There's diagnostic criteria, just like for any physical illness. This is not voodoo. This is science. And mental health issues and addressing them are a scientific approach. It's really important that we embrace and not just think of it as something that happens behind closed doors, and I'm not sure what happens back there, but hopefully people will get better. It is becoming more and more based on science, and that is actually very advantageous for us to make progress. So if anybody's ever had a child or a loved one who's been diagnosed with some type of psychiatric disorder, this is the book that it comes out of, and the diagnostic criteria is extremely well written and very clear so that you know exactly what it is, and they also include all kinds of information about how common it is, where it's more seen, things that may be associated with it, all these types of things. Do we have any neuroscientists in the room tonight? Okay, great. So I won't feel too nervous talking about the brain. The brain, the most complex organ in our entire body. So complex that we don't even fully understand it. And what other organ do you have in your body where you use less than 50% of it on a regular basis? For most of what would happen if you use less than 50% of your heart? You know, you'd have basically one atria and one ventricle who were working, and you would not be able to survive. The brain is incredibly complex, and people a lot of times like to think about kids especially, that they are little adults. And the reality is they're not. The first parts of the brain that develop are what? What are the most basic components? My daughter-in-law is pregnant with their first child. She's got a plum in the side of her belly. The brain is starting to develop. What are the first things that have developed? It's the ability to control the heart rate. It's right at the base of your neck, right here, that controls your heart rate and allows you to breathe eventually. You breathe without really thinking about it. You have to think to stop breathing and to control that. But basic things. The next thing that develops in the brain is our self-regulation. And that part of the brain covers the brain stem, and it really is about teaching us when we're going to kind of need to be alarmed or afraid of something. It's kind of our alert system that gets developed there. And children who have difficult experiences during that time frame may have trouble for quite some time until they receive some help with controlling their emotions. It's very basic. It's not based in logic. It is all about just kind of experiencing the sensory experiences. It's not about language. It's just what you experience and how you respond to that in the environment. Then what starts to happen is the brain begins to develop. And we have kids suddenly around age 2, 1.5, they start to pick up words. They're babbling, they're talking. And the rate of acquisition of language between the ages of 2 and 5 is faster than any other time in a child's life. They are on this huge scale of increasing their word vocabulary and being able to communicate that just blows away almost any other time in the life span. And it's during this time, as their brain is developing and they're learning things, that you begin to be amazed. Like, where did he learn that? How did you know that? Where did that come from? And that is a natural kind of experience. And so kids are able to learn a tremendous amount of information during this period of time. But they're not always really thinking things through. They can be more easily tricked. You know, there are things that kids don't necessarily understand from an early age. And that we need to make sure that as they grow, they develop. Then we enter into adolescence. In adolescence, kids are doing amazing things. Think about some of the subjects that your kids are taking during their adolescent years. They may be taking AP classes. They may be doing all kinds of incredible work. And at the same time, they have the frontal part of their brain, their frontal cortex is not very well developed. Their brain at that point, for that part, is not making good decisions, doesn't have the ability to do what we call really high-level executive functioning or critical thinking skills. They are struggling to be able to, they can do all kinds of calculus and all kinds of stuff like that, but thinking through things is not something they're done. I like to use the example that a lot of times, especially for adolescent boys, at that age, they have all the horsepower, but none of the brakes, right? So they can, they may make an A on a calculus test, and then they turn around and they're jumping off the roof into a trash can after school that day. And you're just like, what are you thinking? Without thinking things through necessarily. That probably had something to do with No Pencil Friday. At least I'll chalk it up to that at this point. But that is something that we don't always understand. That's why kids will make rash decisions, and that's why we as adults and parents in their lives have to really look at that and say, how is their brain functioning, and understand that you don't have all the skills that you will have later. Think about your lives. Did you make some decisions at 16, 17, 18 that if you had them to do over again, you would love to do them over again? Because our brain continues to develop, and that frontal cortex continues to develop until age 25. It's not till age 25 that we actually are really kind of assimilating that. And for any of you, like me, who have adult children, where you look like, I don't know what this person's going to do, and finally at 25, parents become smart again, and the person's like, this is the person I knew before. You kind of resemble somebody I knew a few years ago. That is all due, not all, but mostly due to brain development. And we can't expect individuals that don't have the ability to do things to necessarily accomplish those. And it helps to know that there is a scientific reason why individuals may struggle with some of the decisions they make, and that's why we provide structure. We provide structure to keep them from, guardrails from going off into the ditch. That's why school is important. That's why we have all types of other activities to kind of help them stay organized, and they begin to learn. And it's those experiences of having some degree of failure and experiencing that and then learning how to move forward that allows them to start coping more effectively over time, and understanding that the cause and effect impact of all the experiences that they may have. So, we could sit here and talk all night long about brain development, and because I work in the area of trauma, that's where we work a lot, there's a lot of significant impacts that trauma may have necessarily on the child's brain and their development. And trauma doesn't have to be even what we do all the time, which is some type of child maltreatment. It can be, I think Dr. Nichols mentioned a couple examples. How about if you have a house fire and lose everything? How about just when your pet passes away or you have a loved one that passes away? How about when the tornadoes came through here, right? And we were without power for a week and people didn't know. We weren't sure what was going to happen. There's all kinds of experiences that we may have with trauma. So it is something that individuals can be impacted by, but it doesn't define who they are, and it doesn't define where they will go in their future. We have services that we can help provide to them to help them recover from those experiences. Now, it'd be pretty crazy for me to be up here in front of you where all of us have been wearing masks today and not address the issue of COVID, right? And its impact on mental health. I think all of us have been impacted by this experience. Nobody in this room knows where we'll be 6 months from now, right? That's a degree of uncertainty that all of us hold in our lives that we never really experienced until 18 months ago. Before then, you had some reasonable expectation about what the course and path of your life would be. You had no idea necessarily 18 months ago that we'd be sitting here with almost 700,000 Americans deceased from something we can't see with our own eyes. And it's been a difficult time. And I would actually posit to you that a lot of the dissension, arguing, partisan rhetoric and stuff in front of science has actually done more to exacerbate mental health issues than almost anything. That is not healthy for kids to be raised around all kinds of controversy and uncertainty. That is very troubling to them. Kids need stability as that part of their brain that is about self-regulation is developing. If they live in a hyper-partisan, aggressive environment, it's not really the best environment for them. And what it can do is impact their ability to learn, to engage with others. So COVID has changed because we have so much uncertainty, and we've had such a sense of national loss in our society that we will not really fully understand the impacts of this, for some time. Now, I don't want to make it about, it's not, for me, a political debate. I'm a big believer in following the science, but it is an issue that has to be acknowledged, that it's here and it's impacting us and making us change our behavior in so many ways. I have a son with special needs who lives at home. I even shared with Lee that, are you sure this is going to be safe? And so she, you don't have to sit out there. There'll be a nice distance between you and others. I don't want to take COVID home to my son who's medically fragile and potentially cause him harm. It impacts my every decision. Well, related to that, what do people do when they're faced with challenging circumstances? What do they do when they're faced and they're overwhelmed, whether it be trauma or other types of issues that are going on? And I feel like it's important to acknowledge and just put out there that the issue of substance abuse, alcohol abuse, opioid abuse is something that I think every single community is struggling with. Some individuals do it to act cool and to try to do things that other people won't do and impress others. Other people do to try to self-medicate. Regardless of the reason or that someone's engaging in those kinds of activities, abuse of substances can be a huge issue, and it can exacerbate other issues that are going on. It can make other issues more pronounced or more impacted. Now, sometimes people may be trying to use substances to address symptoms that they're currently experiencing, but that's not a long-term solution. We as Americans, our natural default whenever anything bad happens to us is what? Avoidance. We try to leave the situation. We try to get away from it, and it's in all aspects of our life, especially in mental health. The natural tendency, the default for all of us is to try to avoid it, not think about it, put it behind us. Everybody in this room's had stuff that's bothered you, maybe something you'd like to say to someone that you haven't said, whatever the case may be. But a lot of times our natural tendency is to avoid. And what that can do over time is only continue to exacerbate whatever the issue is. That actually being able to address the issue is the way we can we can intervene more effectively. So I think it's important to understand that sometimes we as parents may want to use avoidance of what we're seeing. We may see things that we're concerned about, but we don't say something. And being able to come forward and have a conversation about it, to ask a trusted professional about this, someone at the school, if there's concerns at school, if they're seeing something of a similar nature, is something that we need to be able to do, because avoidance is not our way to move forward. It only leads to regret if something unfortunate happens, which leads me to probably the worst of all parent fears, is worrying about kids who may be, thinking of harming themselves. Let me just debunk this idea. It is not uncommon for individuals to have thoughts of this, especially during adolescence and early adulthood. Sometimes things aren't going the way they would like them to. It's overwhelming. People may feel like they're not measuring up. They're not going to, be successful. Whatever the case may be, I'm not saying it's right or it's good. I'm just saying it's not unnatural for that to happen. But obviously, I think for almost any parent, it would be a parent's worst nightmare to have that experience of losing a child and the fear of that. Now, sometimes this can be because kids put a lot of pressure on themselves. Sometimes it can be because parents put a lot of pressure on kids, a combination, or other things. It can be also a result of bullying, which is why every parent should be concerned about bullying and not wanting to model hyper-aggressive behavior as a way of being able to have fun or enjoyment, because it has an impact on people. I can share, I remember being bullied. I remember, being scared. I remember waking up in the morning having a stomach ache, afraid to go to school because of being bullied when I was younger and impressionable. And there was no dialogue about it. And I think it's imperative that we be addressing that issue, because that issue can really lead to harm for our kids, especially kids who may be more sensitive and vulnerable during some of their earlier years. And it also sets a really terrible dynamic of what are we kind of teaching, that bullies can get away with it because, bullying into adulthood begins to be criminal. And I don't think that's what we really want to necessarily engender. So we're going all over the mental health world today. So let me talk some about treatment. What do you know about mental health treatment? Where do you ever learn about mental health treatment? You might watch TV shows, you might watch movies, you might have some portrayal. We have come a long way in the mental health field. It's not some voodoo magical mystery that's happening behind some door where somebody just suddenly goes in and talks to somebody, and without having any clear direction or purpose, they suddenly get better. That's not really what happens in real life. In real life now, we have what are called evidence-based treatments. The California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse lists all kinds of different therapies. They're rated based on the research available to demonstrate what's effective for certain type of disorders, certain age of individuals. We know, we have the science to tell us what works. And if you are pursuing mental health services, I would strongly encourage you to inquire before you pursue them about what types of evidence-based treatments that the individual uses, because those are really useful for being able to have confidence that we're going to move forward. I mean, it happens, this is not new. Anybody in here who has a medical issue, do you want to go into someone who's just willing to try kind of wacky stuff, or do you want to go to someone who's using the most up-to-date methods for how to address the heart blockage that you have? I think everybody would want to go, I want to make sure this doctor knows like the most recent stuff, that they have learned and they're doing the most recent stuff. I'm not really interested in my blood disorder being treated with leeches necessarily, like used to be done. That's just kind of, that's not science. And when you go to the doctor and you have a medical issue, what's the first thing a good doctor does? They provide psychoeducation about it. They talk about it. So this is what we know. This is how common it is. These are some potential long-term impacts. Here's some various treatment options that are available to us. Here's what I would recommend to you. We can expect the same course of intervention in the mental health arena, to be able to have the therapist explain, provide that psychoeducation so that when individuals have an issue, they can understand it and put it in context, because it's so out of context for what they may have otherwise experienced. This becomes really important for families who may be struggling with someone who has some significant psychiatric illness that's really completely misunderstood by the entire family. So I would strongly encourage, if you are seeking mental health services, to make sure you're pursuing evidence-based treatments so that you can have a greater degree of confidence that the person who's getting those services is actually able to benefit and heal. Which leads me then to another area, which is psychiatry. So there are psychiatrists, I guess I should explain, psychiatrists are, for those of you who are not fully aware, are medical doctors who are specially trained in psychiatric disorders. They are seeing individuals who may have some psychiatric diagnoses and working with them, but at the end of the day, they're a medical doctor. That's different than a psychologist, a social worker, a licensed professional counselor who are trained in their area of expertise, but they're not able to prescribe medications. And sometimes, for some illnesses, medications are extremely beneficial, and they can be helpful, just like other things. High blood pressure. What can you do for high blood pressure? Eat better, you can exercise, but you also may take a blood pressure medication, right? It augments other things that you're doing. It's the same with some mental health issues, that psychiatry that psychiatric medication can be helpful and necessary and very, very important for some individuals. So it's not something we should be afraid of, but if it's suggested that that might be a benefit of being able to access those services so the individual we are caring for is able to get the help they need. Medication, I know there's a lot of talk about, well, you can't just throw a pill at it. I think as a parent, as a consumer, you actually should challenge, why is this the best choice? Is this a long-term issue? Will the individual be able to get off of it eventually? You know, there's lots of important questions I would encourage you as parents or caregivers or, even for your adult, aging parents who may have some issues. Those are important questions to ask and make sure that it's not just trying to always use a pill, especially in the schools. If we have children who have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, there may be some interventions that can be done, some efforts, but sometimes medication can be very profound and really allow them to grow into their full self. Now we're going to get to the uncomfortable part. Not that any of those other parts were uncomfortable, right? But now we're not talking about our kids or our parents. We're talking about us. All of us and our mental health. How is our mental health? Let me just kind of paint a picture for where we are at this point in time. We don't know where we're going with COVID, with other variants, the vaccine, people who did take the vaccine, does it wear off? Do we actually get a, booster dose? Will there be some other issue that arises? Will it be resistant? We have no real notion of where we're going. Every time, I remember back when there was some early forecasting with COVID-19 and out of the University of Washington, they were projecting that by the end of the year, there would be 600,000 deaths in America, and people were like, no, there's no way. That's just completely ridiculous. You can't even put faith in that. It's so far out of reach. And, here we are. We're past that. So we don't know. That's anxiety-provoking for folks. Secondly, we have a loss of control. Not only we don't know, but we have limited control on what we can do to try to help protect ourselves, protect our loved ones. And it's just really scary when we have that loss of control in so many areas. What about schooling? Are schools going to have to shut down? Are we going to go virtual? Is my work going to go virtual? Am I going to have a job? Are my kids going to be able to continue going to school? What are all these different issues that are going on that we lose control of? And that creates anxiety for all of us. Further, because of so many of us have been restricted on the things that you would normally do to kind of help center yourself, spending time with family, spending time with loved ones, going on vacations, being able to go visit grandparents, cousins, going on some type of trip, all these things that we would normally do to kind of help us, have that time away where we can do what we want to do, we've really struggled to be able to do that. And that has an impact because how many of you have ever thought like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks and we'll be on vacation. Oh, I can just hold on 2 more weeks and we can be on vacation, right? It's something we look forward to. What do we have to look forward to right now? Right? We don't know. We don't know that we can do those things. Is it safe to do those things? Well, we had a big debate in my family. My sister is married to a Greek man. And they wanted to go to Greece, and it caused issues in our family. Like, my wife and I were like, do you not see that they're like saying, don't come here, and all this? But there's so much going on, and we lose that support. And then what impact does that have on kids, right? It's just like whenever we have some type of traumatic event, sometimes we as parents want to catch up. We want to get the news. We want to see what's happening. Tell me what's going on. I want to find out the latest. And that's what's on our TV at night. And I can tell you, from a mental health perspective, it's not the best option for kids to always be exposed to those things. If we want to find out that stuff, get your iPhone, get your iPad, do whatever, this work is sponsored by Apple, I guess. But get some other mechanism where it's not just being broadcast for everybody to necessarily see. It is, we don't want to over-inundate our kids. And have you talked with your kids about how they're feeling about COVID? Not an in-depth, overwhelming conversation where you're acting as a therapist, but just to find out, to ask them, how do you feel about all of this? What questions do you have? A lot of times kids have questions and they don't know where to ask, and simply asking them if they have some questions or anything that doesn't make sense or they would like for you to explain can really help kids and help them feel a little more comfortable. I mean, wouldn't all of you love for someone to explain to us exactly where we'll be a year and a half from now? I sure would like to know that with some degree of confidence, but unfortunately that's not the case. But we can at least explain what we know and what's out there, and try to let kids, have the information that they need. So let me come full circle. First off, I really admire all of you who came out tonight to participate in this, because it shows that you really care, that you're interested in an important topic, and that you recognize the importance that mental health well-being has on so many aspects of the school. There is a huge connection between the quality, mental health status and academic performance and behavior. And so it is incumbent on every school to want their students to have the best mental health, and that means to have community mental health, because kids grow up in a community. And I hope that there is some little piece that you get out of tonight's conversation that you can share with others, or maybe that you'll go home and talk about. Now, I intentionally, my natural slant is we're going to have full-on 50 minutes of nothing but talking about child abuse, because that's my passion, that's what I do every day. I've really tried to step back from that, and I almost have intentionally not spoken about that issue, although it's an important issue that affects so many kids in our community. But I really wanted to focus on the broader context of mental health, because this is going to continue. This series will continue with additional speakers who will be talking about certain particular topics of interest to the PTA and to the parents of the school district, so that you can find information, be able to access speakers of topics that you would like to hear. So I hope that you'll share with others about coming. I hope that you will take some information from all of my colleagues and co-workers who were here tonight to be part of the resource fair. I think they're going to be open for another 30 minutes after this presentation or discussion gets finished. So with that, I will close my time and maybe actually give you a few minutes back. I guess I'm about 6 minutes early. But thank you very much for your attention tonight. If there's any kind of follow-up that's needed, I'm happy to try to respond, and hopefully you just got a little glimpse into the kind of the broad context of mental health issues that I think are important for us to be thinking about as we move forward. So thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Chris. Let's give him another round of applause. I have no idea how he fits so much information into that amount of time. And also, I know, left me feeling hopeful. I know tonight, we wanted tonight to be about connecting and knowing where your resources are. I've been a professional counselor for 15 years, and hearing Chris even talk about being a parent, I'm a parent of 3 boys, and there's a lot of days where I think I am not equipped for this. And, I feel like as parents, we do have those days, no matter where our background is. And knowing that there are experts, there are people that can come alongside us and help us when we need it, and also for ourselves. I really appreciated that Chris mentioned at the end about taking care of our own mental health. Whether your role here tonight is as a parent, as an educator, as a community member, your mental health matters. Your mental health is important. And I'm so thankful for him to bring that up. And let's remember that tonight, that, we're worth taking care of too. And sometimes I share with other educators and counselors that you can't pour out of an empty cup. So I just want to take the moment to encourage you tonight. You've taken time out of your Tuesday night to be here, so I know it matters to you. So thank you for that. Make sure that you take care of your mental health as well, because it is important, just as you are. We are going to have time as we dismiss tonight. If you would like to stop back at any of the resource tables available, but before we do that, I have one more very important thing to ask of you. Your input is very, very valuable to us. So I would like for you to, if you can, complete an exit survey for us tonight. We actually have another QR code. You can actually take out your device now. I won't even get upset while I'm talking. And it will link you to a very short, brief survey to ask your input and your feedback on your experience here tonight. Our goal was that you would walk away feeling hopeful and walk away feeling like you had resources in your hand. Please give us feedback on what your experience was. And then also, as mentioned, we hope this is not our last event. And we would love to hear your input on what you would like to see in a future Mental Health Matters event. There are topics that you might choose from. If there are interests to you, it could be that next time we look at doing some in-depth topics and breakout sessions and so forth. So you have a chance to indicate that on the survey. There are some of these QR codes posted on the walls as you leave if for some reason you can't get it to work off the screen. And we can link it to our website, the digital toolbox there on the Madison City Schools website with the Mental Health Matters. We can link the survey there as well if you'd like to get to it at that way. So thank you so much for your feedback. It's very, very valuable and important to us. And again, I just want to thank everyone who put in the work to make tonight happen and come together, and our wonderful community resources. They are still at their tables available, or they will be as soon as we close in here. So make sure you go by, get their handouts or their informational flyers, drop those in your bag. If you, we probably have more bags out there, so if you want to pick up one for a friend, please do that too, but don't leave empty-handed. And I'd love for us to share our resources with more people. So thank you for James Clemens for hosting us tonight, Dr. Clayton opening up your school for us, and thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you so very much. Go home and enjoy your families. Thank you.